We just a super quick presentation. I'm Olid and David Caballero from Evolving Education, and we believe that education is the key to change the world. So when we empower children to take control of their learning and their lives, then we will be empowering them to create a world with values. So we have been researching all around the world what already works in some of the most innovative educational centers. We have collected more than 150 educational pioneers from 17 different nationalities. I have contributed to all this research, and now we are focusing on democratizing this global know-how and sharing this collective wisdom. So today at GIFT, we are celebrating creativity and innovation, and we want to invite you to question and explore what is the best that we can do for children and for youth.
Yeah, and we're gonna start sharing a screen. I think it's loading, but it's gonna be there. But before looking at the potential solutions, because we have been talking a lot about education and the need for change, we had an amazing conversation before, hosted by Richard, about this topic as well. We want to talk first about why it makes sense to rethink education. And the first point that we want to make is that children and youth are facing right now new challenges to find a job and really a purpose in life. In countries like Spain, for instance, youth unemployment rate is already considered a systemic failure with 40% youth unemployment. And when people look at these statistics, I don't know if you see the right slide at the moment. I think it will happen. When people see these statistics, many of us assume that the problem will be solved if more young people move through the educational system to higher education, essentially going to college, going to university, and then everything will be solved. However, data from in the USA, and that's what you see there on the right-hand side of the slide, shows that university education is not necessarily the panacea. The unemployment rate of college graduates exceeds the overall unemployment rate of the population in the States, with more than 50% of graduates already don't work in their field of study. But beyond employability, is a school preparing young people to face the social, emotional challenges of life? Data from the World Health Organization doesn't seem to point in that direction. 1 in 10 children and youth experience some sort of mental health problem at the moment. And in the case of the UK, where this has been really closely monitored, both mental disorders and emotional problems have been increasing among boys and girls along the last few years. And even though this is a multifactorial problem, right, education only plays a part of it. I think that we would all agree that an education that is relevant for the present and for the future should support the socio-emotional development of children and youth so that they can face the realities of today's world. And all of this in a critical moment of social and environmental rupture. The ways in which we interact are changing, the social constructs are changing. We don't really know yet the effects that exposure to different types of technology can have on children, particularly technologies that are designed to be addictive and that narrow down the spectrum of information that we can actually see and access. While we're all well aware about how we're already starting to suffer the impact of our destructive potential on nature, from microplastics in water to polluted air in cities and increased temperature due to climate change. And this is something very connected with the previous talk about SDGs. So with all of these things in mind, what is the best that we can do, not just for children or for education really, but for the world? Because when we start questioning how we learn, we end up questioning how we live.
Yeah. Normally, when most people talk about improving education, we tend to think on improving academic results and reducing school failure. But the objective is then to increase the performance of boys and girls in school exams or reduce the amount of school dropouts. But all this happening in an educational system that has been designed in the 18th century. The content is outdated. The structure that follows, as Kikao was saying, is a top-down approach where students just become consumers of information. Also, the way learning happens is ineffective. Like, you know, from your own experience, that what we remember very little content that we memorize, write down on a test, and never use again. And also, the research about how we learn also verifies that we don't learn best in that following that structure. And we also evaluate learning using a standardized test. But Have you, once that you have grown up, have you ever faced a situation like that? Alone, just with a paper, not talking to anyone, without access of information, and with questions that only have one solution, one correct answer? So in the real world, we have access to information. We need to collaborate with other people. However, we evaluate the readiness of young people to face the world in a scenario that actually they won't encounter again outside their formal education. So I ask again the question, is this what we aspire when we talk about quality education? So we can also go and look at meaningful learning, learning that actually stays in your brain and remains through your life. But meaningful learning does not happen in a coercive environment. Fear-based learning is very powerful. It's a very powerful learning system. The brain works, the part of the brain that processes learning when we are afraid is associated with survival. So it activates really quickly and we can learn really fast. But this learning is not gonna last in our long-term memory. And it only works when we have to solve really simple problems and tasks. But when we learn in a coercive environment, we actually don't achieve that meaningful learning or deep learning that we are looking for. Students mainly try to watch, memorize, and try to remember the things that they need in order to avoid getting into trouble, and that's it. So in order to achieve meaningful learning, we need to involve other areas of the brain. We need to involve the prefrontal cortex, and that only activates when we feel safe. And for that, what we need to create in the classrooms is create safe learning environments. We also need to prioritize the relationship between the teacher and the students and between the students within the class. So for that, that requires that educators develop, or they are in a constant process of development, of personal development. We also need to have fun. So our brain produces endorphins and dopamine, and that helps learning also. And here is the related also with the talk that Richard gave. When students are interested in what they are learning, when they see value in it, when they can apply that knowledge, that also leads to meaningful learning. And that's why now there is a lot of trends that are associated with learning by doing, such as project-based learning and so on. So these are quickly expanding, but I want to throw another question here. And is learning content the goal of quality education?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when we think about how to improve education, usually we think about how can we help kids to learn more of those contents. How can we teach better those contents? How can we ensure that they remain in memory for longer, that they do better at tests and things like that? And this is the traditional view where we prioritize academic contents over skills. But does this make sense nowadays? And in order to understand this dilemma, it's worth having a look at some of the recent developments, particularly in automation and artificial intelligence. And I'm gonna share my screen again over here. So if we look, for instance, at human versus AI, that's what we put in this slide. In 1997, the best chess player in the world was not human anymore. Garry Kasparov lost to the AI Deep Blue. In 2011, the best player of the TV quiz game Jeopardy was not human either. To do this, the supercomputer Watson had to understand natural language, double meaning clues, puns, and literal illusions, skills that Ken could only define as intuition. And the same happened in 2017 with the Asian game Go, which was thought to be beyond the reach of artificial intelligence because of the level of strategy and intuition that needed to happen to actually play this game well. And this is happening in nearly every field that you can imagine, from driving cars to writing financial reports and even composing music. So children in schools right now are getting ready for jobs that do not exist yet. It's impossible to predict the future, but skills such as creativity, collaboration, adaptability, and problem solving seem to be fundamental for any future outlook. And this is what we tend to call 21st century skills. Developing these skills requires much more than making a presentation about a subject. They need to face real multidisciplinary challenges. And these are complex challenges with no apparent solutions or a procedure that they have to follow step by step. Like the real challenges that we are facing today. And the way that evolving education we like to go about this is not to reinvent the wheel, but to go and research how this is already happening in places that are already achieving this around the world. So let me give you a couple of examples. One of them will be High Tech High in the United States. And this is a high school where the teachers work together to develop multidisciplinary projects with a good amount of student self-direction. For instance, I'm going to show you in a minute, as soon as the slide changes, an image where students are working on a project that combines history and engineering to represent how civilizations rise and fall. Or at Mondragon Team Academy. And this is a kind of a youth program developed in Spain, and now it's also working in China, and that we have been researching, where young learners learn entrepreneurship by building startups year on year and learning literally by doing in the real world. So they have real customers, they have a real business that they set up, which is very different from the conventional way in which business schools and similar kind of environments work.
Mm-hmm. So we are facing new challenges as a society. And when we consider these challenges, we tend to think about how to survive them and how to train children and prepare children to adapt to this new situation. But why should we stay there? Why only aspire to survive these changes instead of empowering kids and children and youth to lead a world with values? So it's not now about training the factory workers of the future, but it implies taking responsibility for our own decisions and the world that we want to create together. So it involves social responsibility, interdependence, autonomy, consciousness. And some educational centers that are close to these objectives are those using different principles such as democratic education, sociocratic education, self-directed learning. And I would like to give you some examples. For example, we visited in Israel a school called Hadera Democratic School, and this school is ruled by a parliament, which is formed by the whole community. And they follow the rule of one vote, one person. So everybody can participate in the decision-making of the school. They also have committees that organize different parts of the school, and they are formed by adults and children. They are voted to be in that role. And yeah, they structure how the school works. There are also public schools that are experimenting with democratic education through pilot projects. For example, we have in Estonia, Subemai, which is a school within a school. And this is inspiring the principles of Summerhill School, which is the world's oldest democratic school in the UK. I think it was last year, it was 100 years old, so 101 years old. And when we asked them about the results that they are getting out of this model, they told us that the students who used to bully before now coordinate the conflict mediation group, and others that were on medication for attention deficit no longer need any medication. So we think that these results are far more important than any standardized test. There is also a lot of studies and research accumulating on this topic, such as studies conducted in the UK, which show that schools that allow their students to participate democratically achieve better academic results, better attendance ratios, and fewer expulsions and for social behavior than other schools that were in a similar socioeconomic condition. So a key element of all these examples is that the responsibility for learning is transferred from the educator to the learner. So this way, young people develop the ability to be autonomous, lifelong learners, and something that everybody needs, and which will enable them to be enterprising and adaptable to the new changes that are happening in the world.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lucio. I think that you might have guessed already what's our thinking about what's the most valuable thing that we can do for children and youth. And this is empowering them to take control of their learning so they can take control of their lives. And there are many ways to do this. And a key thing here is that we are not the only ones thinking about this. Actually, this is a long kind of history of thoughts and research on the topic, up to the point that right now, international organizations like UNESCO or the European Union place lifelong learning and agency at the top of their priorities for education. But still, while many of us agree on this point, it's hard to make it a reality, because how to live behind that outdated educational system when you have not experienced other ways of learning yourself? As a person, as a learner, most of us went to a traditional school, so we have never seen a different type of learning environment. Also, you might not have the tools to change dynamics and actually lead that process of starting slowly experimenting and doing things differently. And finally, if you don't count with a community to support each other along the process, because it's going to be a process, and we will all have questions and support and need support along the way. Because of all these reasons, conventional schooling not only limits children's development potential, but also limits us to think and enjoy other paths in education that are more aligned with the world that we want to co-create. And this is what takes us to the learning expedition, which is the scholarships that we're offering at this amazing event at GIFT. And we want to share with you a little bit more, because this is, I guess, what we have been working to support people that want to be part of that transition, to expand your educational creativity, getting inspired from the most innovative schools around the world that are already making this possible, taking examples, tools, and within an empowering global community of educators that are part of that change. And the way that we do this is that we have developed this method that we call expedition as well. And it's based on 3 steps. The first one is that we explore the tools of the world's most progressive learning centers: holistic, agile, democratic, self-directed, really a diversity of ways in which we can empower children and youth to take control of their learning. Second is that you experience these tools in the management of our learning community. So it doesn't become something theoretical, but you learn this way as well. And you see how different it is compared to the ways that you have learned even teaching at university, and how different this feels now. And finally, we create a space where everyone can express their fears, their challenges, and can also share the things that are working, your successes. We even have a space that is beyond kind of our control, so that anyone can bring something that they want to share with the community, or a topic that we haven't considered within our program, but you think it's relevant for you to make this transition happen. Yeah, we have been running this for a long time now, and actually the feedback that we have got from people is what keep us energizing us to keep supporting people in that transition. Like we have got here in the slide some quotes from previous participants. Some of them said that it was like coming out of Plato's cave, because in a way, the way that we have been in school kind of put us in a framework about what we understand as education and learning. And when you start seeing how all the other ways in which we can understand learning, suddenly it opens up lots of possibilities for what is possible, and start questioning lots of aspects in your life, I think. But one of the things that I think empower me the most is that people think that learning how to change education is a path towards creating a world based on values, and that they see how the work that we're doing is aligned toward that objective. And what we do is that along 3 months in the learning expedition, we help you along 3 stages, 3 stations. The first one is the base camp of personal growth, because we teach who we are. So we start with our own purpose, how we inspire others, and building community. Then we focus in understanding the pillars of intrinsic motivation to connect with the children's and youth intrinsic motivation for learning. So it stops being a coercive process. And this is the value of motivation and meaningful learning. And finally, we move on to the biggest goal of education nowadays, which is transferring the responsibility from the educator to the learner, taking inspiration from lots of different schools of thoughts, methodologies, tools, and helping you to experiment in your own environment, so that you can start making little pilots and see what works in your environment. And as I was saying before, we're offering 10 scholarships exclusively at this event at GIFT for the people that, like you, want to celebrate children's creativity and innovation and keep on working for that change in education. We already have participants registered from the US, the UK, Mexico, India, Germany, really all around the world. We're going to have different cohorts with different time zones and see when we sleep, but it's definitely happening, because we're really excited about this happening. And we have, if you look at the comments in the YouTube video, you're going to find a link to the application form for one of those 10 scholarships that you can access now. And I'm pretty sure that they're going to be gone by the end of the weekend. So I encourage you to go there, click on the link, and fill up the form. What else can we share with you? Well, we're coming to the end of the presentation. I think that each of us is in our own path to unlearn and relearn how an empowering education could be, and events like this one provide a framework and a space where we can have meaningful conversation. Creating a better learning environment for children and youth in your community can look like a big challenge, and it can feel lonely. But it doesn't have to be that way. This is a way to connect with many other educators that are walking in that path, and we're definitely here as well to support you to transform education. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll be up for questions in the comments, in the chat, or for people that are in Zoom right now.
We just go fast we could.
Yeah.
We have another person who's joined us. This is Michelle Munson, and she has experienced everything from elementary school up through being a superintendent. So you've done everything.
Hello, Michelle.
Oh, you're muted though. That's the one thing she hasn't had experience in.
I tuned in not soon enough to get the full impact of your presentation, so I'll have to review it when it comes up in the recordings. But do you actually take students to these places, or is it virtual?
It's virtual, and we work with the educators. We work with the teachers. So we have been physically in many of these learning centers, recording, interviewing the founders, the teachers, and sharing with us their practices. And this is what allows us now. I read an article recently about the difference between chemistry and chemical engineering, and about how the chemists are creating something new, and these are the pioneering schools, and the chemical engineers are the ones that are scaling up. We are scaling up, we are democratizing this global wisdom by creating an online platform and an online community that meets regularly to help people along that process.
Sounds wonderful. I'm anxious to learn more about it. I'm sorry I didn't tune in sooner. It sounds exciting. It's definitely those of us who've been involved in creativity and education for a long time have been behind all the way. And it's so exciting to see all of these efforts that are undergoing development right now, and providing certainly wonderful opportunities for students and teachers of everyone. So thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I'll leave the form over here as well in the chat in Zoom, because it will be great to come with you or to share it with your friends and colleagues.
There you go.
Thanks so much.
I don't know if you're watching YouTube at the same time, but there's a professor from Mexico who said he wants to become a student and apply. So you've got a lot of interest out there.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's actually, so that this is fantastic, and maybe that's something that we didn't clarify as well, that this is a program for educators, for teachers that want to learn from the most innovative schools out there. We think that each educator has an incredible potential to transform the realities within their communities, and what we're doing is connecting all these people that want to transform education into a global platform to learn from each other, share experiences, and then we bring also all this research. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the scholarships, and that's wonderful, but there's only 10 of them. And if more people want to get involved, can you talk about what it costs if you don't get a scholarship?
Sure. Yeah, we actually are experimenting with that, how to precisely democratize access to this. So at the moment, we even have two pricing, one for the Global North and one for the Global South. So in the Global North is $590, and in the Global South is just $75, because we have learned so much from the Global South. We think it's a fountain of innovation, of looking at cultures and learning from different perspectives. And also we want to provide access to that. We also give group discounts just from 3 people, already at 20% discount. So that would be only $470. Yeah, and we always up for having a conversation and see how to make this possible to more and more people. Really, we're passionate about how to bring this change to more environments and support people in their processes. So yeah, if you think that price can be one of those challenges, go ahead, fill up the form, because we'll be happy to have that conversation and see how to make it possible.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. Well, I hope you're going to be so incredibly busy you won't be able to sleep or eat, because what you're doing is just wonderful.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you. We're reaching the more than 40 people already. This is the first time we communicate this number, but yeah, it's getting a lot of people, a lot of now schools are getting interested into training all their stuff. So that's going to be the next challenge. But so looking forward to it.
Well, I mean, this gift is just today, right now, but we're recording this and it's going to be posted. And so in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, somebody can be watching this and go, oh, wait a minute, that's something I want to get involved in. So there's going to be a lot of interest going on over the years.
Thank you, Jake. And something that we keep doing, by the way, talking about virtual versus physical. Now we are less nomadic. We're not that much out there with our camera, although we do once a year, 1 or 2 countries where we go and research in person. But weekly, we do webinars with people that are innovating in education. Like last week, we talked about democratic education in nature and Montessori tools. And next week, we're talking about what? About children's parliament in India. Like we're always learning about this new, that's kind of part of our awareness work of bringing awareness about the people that are doing meaningful things in their schools or learning spaces.
Great. Very good. Well, thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jake,
you.
for the